Hi, this is Alejandro Rios, and together with Elena Molina and Nuria Pelechano, we have developed an experiment to check whether animations have an impact in the perception of realism of a simulated crowd in a virtual environment. The main motivation of this work is the fact that often it is difficult to evaluate whether a simulated crowd is realistic or not. Different methods have been used to check the realism of a crowd. Quantitative methods check velocities, densities, flow rates, personal distances between avatars, etc. Qualitative methods present videos to the users and ask them, for instance, how natural or soft the trajectories look. These kind of elements are not consistent with what we see in the real world. So, the main objective of this work is to find out to what extent animations matter in a simulated crowd. For instance, here you can see a wandering humanoid that is a bit strange in a crowd, just walking like this, doing nothing. But if we add an animation, in this case talking on the phone, the believability of the whole simulation increases. The perception of realism is also affected by the appearance of the avatars. This has been studied for decades from different points of view. The shape, material, and rendering style have an effect on the perception of facial emotions. Light is also important to express emotions. Photorealistic avatars have an impact on the participant's response. Different styles of walking, gaze, gestures, social interaction have also an impact on the sense of presence in virtual environments. So, we prepared an experiment with two independent variables to check if varied animations and appearance together have an impact on the perceived realism by the participants. We recorded 4 videos with 4 different conditions: bots with locomotion, bots with varied animations, humans with locomotion, and humans with varied animations. For this experiment, we got models from the Microsoft Rocketbox characters library. Is a set of 40 characters that can be used for research purposes, and we animated them with the Mixamo web page that is free to animate characters. We also created a virtual city populated with the avatars, as it can be seen in the video. The bots are just walking or chatting, sitting down in benches, chatting, and the same with the humanoids. They just walk, chat, talk on the phone. Due to the COVID-19 crisis, it was not possible to perform the experiment with a virtual reality equipment, but instead we created a Google form with the videos displayed in a Latin square order, and we asked 3 questions for each of them: the realism of the crowd, the realism of the trajectories of the avatars, and the realism of the animations. We gathered responses from 81 participants aged 14 to 62 with different experience on computers and video games. Our hypotheses were: 1. The realism of the crowd will be higher when having animations variety with humanoid figures. 2. Trajectories will be more realistic with animation variety. 3. Animation variety will increase the realism of the crowd for both bots and humanoids. To check our hypothesis, we set a significance level of 0.05, and we checked for both the normality of the data and the homogeneity of variances. We got the right conditions to apply a one-way ANOVA to check the difference between the means and the Tukey pairwise comparison with Bonferroni correction to analyze significant effects between conditions. The results showed a significant difference in the realism of the crowd, the trajectories and the animations when we used humanoids with varied animations. Hypothesis 1, which is related to the overall realism, was supported. The combination of humanoids with varied animations gave a statistically significant mean in the realism of the simulation than any other combination. The analysis showed an interaction effect between the animation type and appearance, but there was not a main effect on only one of the variables. Only one of the variables would not cause a difference in the overall realism. In conclusion, animation variety increased the realism for humanoids, but not for bots. Looking at the pink and blue bars, it can be seen that for humans, the inclusion of varied animations gave a statistically significant difference. However, looking at the green and yellow bars, there is no statistically significant difference when using varied animations or not for bots. Hypothesis 2, related to the realism of trajectories, was also supported. Asking the participants for the realism of trajectories, we got a statistically significant difference when varied animations were used. In this case, the appearance of the avatars was not important. An interesting observation. Looking at the yellow and blue bars, the use of robots with only locomotion did not give a significant difference in realism of trajectories compared with the use of humanoids. But we got a slightly higher level. When evaluating trajectories with only locomotion, it's better not to use a realistic representation of the avatars. It's enough to use a simpler representation. In our opinion, this could be related to the uncanny valley effect. As you know, the uncanny valley effect appears when trying to improve the appearance of a virtual character. It is related to how much a user that interacts with a virtual character likes or dislikes the character. As we increase the realism of appearance, animations, and behavior of the character, the user tends to like the virtual character more and more. However, when improving too much one aspect of the character without taking care of the other aspects can produce the character to be less likable. For example, a humanoid with texture showing a perfect color for the skin, wrinkles, and clothes can be rejected as realistic if the eyes are not simulated correctly. We believe that the difference in perceived realism for the trajectories was connected to this effect. The trajectories of the humanoids in this experiment were perceived as less realistic than the trajectories of the bots due to the humanoids showed some artifacts and not high realistic animations. Finally, hypothesis 3 is related to the animation realism and it was partially supported. Animation variety increased the perception of realism of the animations for humanoids but not for bots. Using only bots, we observe that varied animations give a slightly higher result in animation realism perception than when bots are just walking. This is related to the fact that bots are perceived as less realistic than humans when used to simulate crowds. We then conclude that varied animations can have an important impact on the perception of realism and that appearance alone does not have an impact on the overall realism. This is consistent with a previous study in VR in which the participants were immersed in a virtual train station populated with high and low renderer avatars. The perception of realism was not statistically significant for the two conditions. It seems that animations have a stronger impact on the perception of realism than appearance. Finally, as pointed out earlier, a simpler representation of the avatars is enough to evaluate the trajectories when using only locomotion. The uncanny valley effect must be taken into account to represent the avatars for the evaluation. We are working on several experiments to check the perception of realism in different situations. The next step is to immerse the participants in a virtual train station with the 4 conditions presented in this work: humans and bots with and without varied animations. The main objective of this work is to check if the perception of realism is consistent with the results obtained with the videos. It is known that artifacts are more visible when the participants are immersed in a virtual environment. We are improving the environment and the animations, avoiding artifacts seen in the videos. We are also working on the evaluation of social presence. The participants will be able to ask the avatars for directions and will get answers according to their questions.
¿Dónde puedo comprar una bebida?
La máquina de bebidas está entre la andana y el puesto de información.
¿Dónde están las andanas?
Las andanas están al fondo de la estación.
We are also working on an emergency simulation where avatars show facial expressions, screams and panic gestures. The main objective of this work is to check whether this type of animations have an impact on the participants' behavior and decision making. So, this is it. As you see, we have a lot of work to do and we are very interested in avatars and their simulation. Thank you very much and feel free to make any question you like. Thank you.